Welcome to Just Saying, a podcast produced by and recorded at Tri-State Worship Center. Now here are your hosts, Holly Schneider and Pastor Terry Wagner.
Welcome, everybody, to Just Saying, episode, who knows?
Two.
You know.
Of season
Uno.
7.
No, 2.
Oh.
Dose of season 7.
We're trying to expand our crowd.
Siete.
More inclusive.
Our Just Saying podcast where we look at...
Yes.
Oh, we went French just now. Man, what's next?
Where we look at real world
Speaking
issues.
Sie Deutsche?
Oh my gosh. Where we look at real world... I can't say that. Real world.
Slowly.
Real world.
Real world. I used to talk like that. I used to not be able to say my R's. It was Holly Wagnall.
Yeah. Keegan was like that.
And then we had a guy at our church in Indiana. And I remember the most random things. His name was Roy McClure.
Yeah.
And I could not say his name.
His name was a nightmare for people like you.
I was like, Roy McMull.
Well, and he was the sound guy at one point because Becky Justice, who at the time was Becky Lawless, her sister... Birdie would sing, and she's practicing with a soundtrack. And she said, "We wind the tape, boy."
Were you like that with your L's too? Were they W's?
I don't...
Lawless would have been a bad one too.
Yeah.
Lawless.
Hey.
I don't think I was Howie. Was I Howie?
I don't remember. You were Mo by then.
Yeah.
So.
But I couldn't say my R. So let's try this again. Real world.
Oh, we're back on the podcast.
Yes.
Issues
Oh.
through a biblical lens. All right. Yeah. I have with me my padre, Terry, Pastor Terry Wagner.
Holly,
PT,
I am your father.
PT, as they call him.
Padre, that's Spanish, right? Padre.
Hey, we're still going.
And I don't know how to speak Spanish.
El Magiciano.
Nope, that's not. Literally, when I went to Ecuador, that's what they told us not to do. They're like, don't just add an O to the end of your words and think that you're speaking Spanish.
But you did it anyway, didn't you?
No,
Oh.
I just went, where's the bathroom? El Baño.
Baños.
That does have
hello.
an O.
Yeah.
The magician, Tyler Staten, also with us.
Hello.
And the crowd goes wild.
Well, that one person did.
Why can't I think of what hello is in Spanish?
Hola.
Adios is hola. Yeah.
Hola.
Adios is goodbye. Yeah.
I've been to
I should
Nicaragua.
know. I've been to Nicaragua
That's right.
once.
I've been there 4 times.
That's a lot.
Fun
of
thing
times.
about my dad, whenever he goes to a restaurant that has some sort of ethnicity, like when you used to be able to go in and eat at Number One Kitchen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I want to learn the language.
Every time he would bring like something, it's what TT.
Chichi, it's thank
It's
you.
thank you, and he would do it over and over again, and that
Bookachi.
waiter was like, "Oh my god."
Bookachi was you're welcome. Bookachi.
I'm like, Dad.
I had it down.
So can you still not go in Number One Kitchen?
No.
Really?
They-
Just a
they
window.
don't have- Are we doing a podcast?
Yes.
Oh,
So let
Speaking
me
of
ask
not
you
going
this:
in,
why can't they go in?
it started with.
COVID. What a great segue.
We finally made it all the way. But where you been?
Full circle.
Oh, today
El
we're...
Circolo.
GG. Oh my goodness.
Help us, Lord.
So today we are going to talk about this,
For a few moments.
the status of the church post-pandemic. Post-pandemic. So
You didn't pop the peas.
I didn't.
I love
Why do you
alliteration.
keep saying that? So just to give a little bit of background, I don't think anybody doesn't know what the pandemic
Well,
is.
they could have been under a rock.
And if
Could
they
have
don't,
been.
where you
Where you been?
Where you
Hey,
been?
we
There
worked
you
it
go.
in.
So 2019, first cases in China, and then 2020 is when it headed our direction. Just personally,
Where were we?
we were all three together.
Yeah, we were.
In Gatlinburg.
We had left. This was March of 2020. I went back on the Church of God website to look to see the dates, and it was March 13th. And we had left here, and little things had started to happen, but on our way, we stop at the same place to eat every time. It's in Corbin.
Yeah.
And we stopped at Corbin. I got a text message from somebody who was in the know, and they said they're canceling.
Yeah.
And we got everybody together, and we were like, They're canceling Winterfest, but we're still going to
Which
Tennessee.
for those people that may not know what
Yeah.
Winterfest is,
Yes.
huge youth rally conference in the Gatlinburg area every year. Usually
Up to that point, it had been at Thompson Bowling Arena.
20,000
Tennessee.
kids. Yeah.
big
deal. And we had rented a huge cabin, the biggest cabin we had ever rented.
Yeah.
I had an elevator. I specifically
did.
remember that.
I forgot about that.
And
Did you ever take it? The elevator?
No, I never did.
Me neither.
so we left here. We told the kids we're going to go anyways. We've got the cabin. We're just going to hang out. We'll do our own services. You spoke one night. Ryan spoke one night. I spoke one night.
And I didn't speak at all the whole time.
No, but you made a video.
You did make a video, and I still
did
have
make
it.
a video.
It was good. It was a good one.
Made a video about hand hygiene, about coming to church.
We went through a whole can of Lysol.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Michael Aaron and Derek Lucas. Yeah.
And when I remember us being on that trip and everything was starting to shut down, we were getting all of us were getting messages.
We were in the vans, and kids were like, "I don't have school next week." They were all excited.
Like all the restaurants in Ashland. That's the first thing I remember that happened. All the restaurants in Ashland started closing down, and Mom was having my brother go pick up groceries for her, so that when they got back home, they would have food and toilet paper and all that stuff. But anyways, when we got back, then we didn't see each other for like 2 months.
Yeah.
Like everything was just our whole world changed like that. Like it was crazy.
I have a picture of your mom running out of a Dollar General in Gatlinburg with a package of toilet paper. Like she was so excited. I found toilet paper.
So it was crazy, because then we would shut down for a period of time. Then we'd open the doors back. I remember we moved the chairs, separated the chairs, and we went to 2 services to have less people here. And then we'd get an uptake in a bunch of cases, and then we'd shut down again for a few weeks and try again. So I guess my first question would be, what do you guys see as some of the biggest changes that has happened since the pandemic when it comes to church in general?
Well, I mean, to those who have actually returned, I don't really see much of a change.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still some who have not. And I occasionally reach out to some of those, and they're like, "Oh, we're coming back. It's like it's 3 years ago.
Right.
I mean, you would, if you're coming back, you
must be waiting for Jesus.
Yeah, or somebody. And I realize that some of those people probably moved on to another community of faith, and that's cool. But some discovered probably that they could have church at home in their PJs, drinking coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the big changes that I've seen, is that people kind of lost their focus of the assembly of the saints, coming together as a community of faith, and I think that's what's happened. And pre-pandemic, numbers nationwide had already dropped down to like 40% of people go to church at least once a week. But then after the pandemic in 2023, that had dropped to like 33%.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think there's just some people. I don't want to get too harsh about it, but I think some people obviously are looking out for their health and so forth, and they should. But then I think there's some people that maybe this became
Just
a
got
good
a little
reason.
too comfortable.
Yeah, this became a good reason that I don't have to go, and I think so. I think the biggest changes are that those people that have not come back have kind of fallen into that routine of I can just catch it online. Yeah. We started a series here on Wednesday nights a couple weeks ago, and have several people that were real excited about it. And the number one question I got was, "Are you streaming it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you streaming it?" And we have a little rule in my house that you got to be present to win, right? Like if Marm, that's my wife, she fixes a great big meal, and she's like, "Should we just take some of this?" I was like, "No, they need to be present to win." Mm-hmm. And I want to say that to people sometimes when are you streaming it? I'm like, why are you even asking me that question? Are you asking because that way you can be in your PJs drinking coffee, or do you have a legitimate
Is there somebody you want to share it with?
Right.
Is there,
Now that's the other good part of it,
Yeah.
right? Is that we've now trained our people basically to share that, right?
Yeah.
They can our reach is bigger. We're not a big church. We're a medium-sized church, but the reach that we have now on Facebook is really big for a church our size. And so I would say that probably another one of the changes is that our reach is bigger, but I don't know if that was for a good reason. I would rather have, would we rather have, 300 people in the building or 150 people in the building and 500 people watching online?
Yeah.
That's a really tough spot. But I think the biggest change is just the people's mentality of the importance of coming together. That is so crucial that we come together. But I think that what the pandemic did was it kind of lessened that importance. It kind of diluted it a little bit. And now people are like, well, if we go, we go. But if we don't, we catch it online.
Yeah.
So, but then, again, the positive side of that, they go on vacation, they can still watch us online.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, whereas before that really wasn't a big deal. So that's kind of where I see it. I don't know.
I'll skip my second question and come back to it because you kind of segued into my third question. Sorry. I'm trying not to breathe into it.
The microphone.
You made me all self-conscious. Do you feel like people have begun to prioritize other things over the importance of gathering, and / why? Why is it important? This is something that we personally battle with the youth constantly because you have games on Wednesday nights, you have travel ball on weekends, you got stuff going on all the time, and it's really difficult to battle that.
Well, to me, that was happening already. I mean, what we battle with as far as, and I don't even want to say it's competing with children's sports. I mean, I played sports growing up. Of course, that was a different era.
It was a different era, yeah. Restaurants weren't even open on Sundays.
Long time ago.
Well, okay, I'm just going to move right on. But the mentality at the time when I was growing up was that if you did something on Wednesday night or Sunday other than go to church, I mean, the earth was going to open up and swallow you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was that reverence and that awe, and I will say the fear of the Lord, and that fear is not a shaky, scared fear. It's an awe and a love mingled with respect, and there was that kind of an awe. But that went away a while back. But the fact that people were not prioritizing the assembling of themselves together, that was going on before the pandemic. Children's sports, recreation, they were already taken over. I saw this, and I tried to find it today when I knew we were going to talk about this. I couldn't find it. But in 1980, some of the top influences on young people's lives was their parents. I think was number one. Somewhere in the top 5 was clergy, right? The church. When I was growing up, the church was the hub of life. Everything evolved around church. A few years ago, that same survey, parents were like down number 5, right? I mean, they weren't even in the top 3 or 4, and clergy's not even on the list.
Yeah.
So I think that
social media number 1.
Well, yeah. I think I wrote it down here today. Today it's friends number 1, celebrities, and technology. Those were in the top 5. And I'm thinking, we've made this paradigm, this shift in the mentality that the church has kind of taken second place, or in this case, not even
top 5. Yeah.
And at one point in time, you could say everything was downstream of religion. Everything was downstream of the church. Politics, downstream of the church. Culture, downstream of the church. But it's not that way anymore, right? I mean, nothing really, it seems like nothing's downstream of the church anymore. Mm-hmm. Politics, culture, society, all those things, it just seems that it has overtaken. But the reality is that the only way you fix that, the only way you begin to change that, is you got to take that equation and bring it back. Make the church the center of life. And when I say church, I'm not talking about Tri-State Worship Center. I'm talking about the community of faith, global church, capital C. Make that, and when you don't make that the center of life, we're seeing we're seeing on the news what happens when church is not important anymore. And I wrote I'll say this, and then you can move on to your next question. But I wrote an article for the Herald Dispatch, which, for those that may be listening in Germany, is the local paper here in Huntington, West Virginia. And in America, yes, in the United States of America. And the title of the article was "It's Not Wrong to Be Right," and I know that sounds like I was doing like a right versus left, but it really was right versus wrong. And my whole precept, my whole thesis, if you want to say it that way, in the article was, let's forget about heaven and hell. Let's just say that there's not a heaven and hell. Let's just live by the Ten Commandments. How much better of a place would this be if we just lived by the Ten Commandments? And they didn't print it because they had a 400-word limit, and I was at like 405. I mean, and instead of asking me to like edit it, they just didn't print it. But I think when you take that element of spirituality out of the picture, out of the equation, it changes everything. And when that happens, then you start seeing the church taking a back seat to this and taking a back seat to that, because it's just not that important anymore. What was the saying? If you consider the church optional, don't be surprised when your children think it's unnecessary, right? I mean, are we going to church today, Dad? Well, we did rent the boat, or we do have this camper, or I know that I'll get blowback
or
on that.
Or a
campulance. Yeah, we had. That's a long story too. We are a Harvest Host location here at Tri-State Worship Center. We allow campers that are traveling to stay on our parking lot for free, and the one that stayed last night was a campulance. It was a converted ambulance, and it was kind of cool. But when the church becomes optional for you, don't be surprised when it becomes unnecessary for your children. And when that happens, I think we just see this continual, again, diluting of the importance of spirituality in the lives of people. And that doesn't stop with just kids' sports. I mean, we are in a political cycle right now that is, just so intense that I believe if people would find their way to their knees and be praying, it can change the course of history. But instead, we don't. We back off. We're quiet. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. We don't want our kids to be upset with us, and all those things. But I just think it's harmful when the church has taken a back seat, and especially in families. And so if I feel like that parents have begun to prioritize sports and all those things over church, that happened before the pandemic. But the pandemic, I think, did allow for that to become more accepted. I guess.
I think one of my biggest things is...
What is it?
It is. It's scary to think about that just as a co-youth pastor. If they're not here, I'm wondering where they're getting fed at.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that it's happening at home, but when the parents are part of the reasons they're not getting here, it's hard for me to think that they're getting fed at home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, Isaiah 7, and we make him... Yes, we make him.
You're a terrible mother.
I know. We make him read a chapter of the Bible every day. Some days it gets skipped, but for the most part, we really try and enforce it, especially this summer. He would go to Marm and Pop's for breakfast, and he'd go there 2 days a week, and we would even tell him, you can read out loud to Marm while she's cooking or whatever, but you need to read your Bible every day. And, I'm just wondering, are we having family devotions, before we leave the house every morning? And I'm not saying this like me and Ryan are the best, but before we leave our house every morning, we pray together as a family. Before we lay our head down at night, we pray together as a family. And, like, are we doing these things to where if, hey, yeah, you had I'm trying to think of a sport that one of our kids don't play. A lacrosse game.
Oh, lacrosse, yeah.
You have a lacrosse game on a Wednesday night and you have to miss. I don't want to think, oh no. You know what I'm saying? Like if your relationship with God is going to suffer because you're not getting your meat, Mm-hmm. And so that's what I think about, I guess. If so many people depend on the church, and they shouldn't, but they depend on the church for that, because they're not reading their Bible and they're not doing devotions and having prayer time, and they're sustaining their Christianity from Wednesday to Sunday. I'm not saying that's right, but if that's how they're doing it and they're missing those things, then it comes a lot easier for all the other things to creep in. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on it.
Well, Tyler, you've got children at kind of both ends of the continuum. Yes, you do. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Charlie's a little older, and Cash is a little younger.
So Charlie's 14, Cash is 6. And I'll be honest, I'm one of those people, especially on Wednesday nights, that have not been as faithful about coming. And that was, compared to what it was like before marriage and kids. I was here pretty much every week, and thankfully I work in a place where Sundays, I'm not really relied on to be anywhere as far as that goes. So like I'm 100%, committed to being here, and of course I'm involved in the media ministry. So there's that, but Sundays is for church. Mm-hmm. Do I miss here and there? Maybe take a vacation with the family, or have a trip out of town. Yeah, but I really try hard, faithfully, to be here on Sundays. And when Charlie got into middle school and started playing sports, that was something that came up. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they did, for some reason, play a lot of games on Wednesdays. Yeah, and I've always even before I became a father, I always wanted to make, one day when I'm a parent, I want to be a present parent. I want to be involved, and I want to be there for him, because I have this thing where I think, and I'm not the person who thought of this, but I've always carried this with me, is that it's not about anything else. It's not about what you gave them or what you did for them, but it's presence. Mm-hmm. It's being there. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, I think that means more, whether they realize it now or not. As they get older, that's what they're going to remember, that you were there. Mm-hmm. They're going to remember what you bought me for Christmas in 2013, but I remember you were there. I don't remember what you bought for me on this birthday, but I remember you were there. Right. And so that has been a struggle for me. When Wednesday nights come up and there's a game, and I have to miss church, so it's tough.
Well, it is tough, and I don't
know that there's a right or wrong answer or way to approach it.
I think the right answer is somewhere in history from 1965, when I was playing Little League baseball. Yeah. Somewhere from there till now, someone decided it would be a good idea to play games on Wednesday night, and nobody seemed to think that was a bad idea, right? And nobody stood up and said, "Wait a minute." And then they're like, "Okay, well, now we're gonna have these traveling teams, and we're gonna travel to places over the weekend, right?" And we're not. I'm not sitting here bashing athletics for kids. Again, I played. Right, I played. Sports. My kids played. My grandkids play. But I think that at some point, somebody who was in charge, whoever it was, somebody said, "Hey, I got this great idea. Or let's play games on Wednesday." Yeah. Or let's play games on a Sunday. And instead of someone saying, "Well, what about church?" I think that the church kind of got pushed aside and said, "Okay, let's do this." And all of that, I know it seems like we've kind of lost our way, but we really haven't. All of that was happening long before COVID.
Yeah.
But I do think that with the I can stay at home and watch it online in my PJs drinking coffee, that mindset kind of sets in then on in life, everything in life now, right? I mean, it's not that big a deal if we miss it. If we can always go back and catch it on YouTube
Right.
or catch it, on the Facebook page or whatever. And so I do think that COVID has played a bit of a role in that, but that was the importance of church is something that started waning a long time ago. Again, a different era, I get it, but, and I've said this to our congregation before, if I woke up on Sunday morning as a child and just in my mind was just thinking, I don't want to go to church today. I got a whipping. I didn't even have to say it.
I know what you were thinking, boy.
Yeah, I didn't even have to say it out loud. My dad, because that was how structured and I'll say strict my parents were about, we're going to church. We are going to church. Now, some people may say, well, that's why Pastor Terry's as warped as he is. I don't think so. I think I turned out all right. And I think my brothers turned out all right. And we did the same thing. We had to read a chapter out of the Bible every morning after breakfast. We were at church. As a teenager, and Vicky tells this story all the time, but as a teenager, we would go to church on Sunday morning and stay at church all day long. We'd go over to the park, play basketball or football, whatever. The girls would bring lunch and we would eat we just stayed at church all the time. We didn't really, I don't want to say we didn't know there wasn't anything else. We just didn't think about doing anything else. It's about church. Let's go to church. And I think, again, I think all that was going on, the kind of slippery slope of that was happening before COVID, but COVID definitely just kind of kicked the door open and said, y'all come now.
It's kind of like the whole, one step forward, two steps back. COVID was like 10 steps back.
Yeah, yeah.
And when, and I think about Journey at that time was probably, as far as number of students, was probably the largest it had ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it just kind of slowly dwindled. And some of that was you had kids get older and move on to the young adult, but we didn't have any
pandemic and young adults. We were running close to, I think, 40. And then, we were down to less than almost 10 kids.
Them young adults.
Now we've got, it has grown significantly since then. But yeah, it was bad for a while. Really bad. And I felt like we tried to handle the pandemic as well as we could.
Yeah.
We did online lessons. We had a prom here because prom got canceled for everybody. And
you had a prom at your church?
we did. We did. Yes. All right. Next question.
Bring it.
Is there anything that you felt like you did as a pastor during the pandemic when it comes to the church? Any decisions that you made that you would have changed?
Oh, well, thanks for being with us today, everybody. Hindsight's always 20/20, right? You have something that's unknown that you've never really experienced before. You're not going to go find a verse in 3 Timothy explains how pastors and churches should handle a pandemic, right? That's not how it happened. And
there's no book of COVID.
Right. And it was a relatively modern situation. We were dealing with the unknown. There was, obviously we trust in the Lord, but in all of our humanity, we keep hearing all these reports of how people were dying and different things. And then the local health department says this is what you need to do. And even our state structure, as far as our church is a Church of God out of Cleveland, Tennessee, we have a state structure. We have an office in Columbus. Even they were passing on some directives and some edicts that we should consider doing. And we did. We went virtual for a season. Matter of fact, like I think Holly already mentioned, for a couple seasons we ended up virtual. But knowing what we know right now, knowing on this side of it, and looking back on what we did, I would have to say I don't know that I would have done anything different. I really don't. I mean, we moved into our new sanctuary, 3 years before all this,
2017.
2017. That happens in 2020. We go virtual for, I don't remember how long, 3 months? I don't remember.
It was 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah. And so then when we finally come back, we go to 2 services, like Holly's already said, and we separate the chairs. Again, that's kind of contrary to, I had to think about that.
Contrary.
Let's not go back there. To what the whole come together in community of faith is all about, right? We come together, we don't come to separate, but yet, the idea at the time was to get people 6 feet apart, and of course what we know now about everything and the obvious medications that are available now, it changes everything. But I think in the moment, I don't know that I would go back and try to change any of that, because we were dealing with something we just didn't really know that much about. Can you work the devil into all of that and say, well, this was the devil at work? And of course, I mean, we live in a fallen world. A fallen world is going to deal with this kind of stuff, has for thousands of years. But we had not seen in the modern church, we had not seen this kind of a thing before. Do we wear masks? Do we not wear masks? Do we vaccinate? Do we not vaccinate? I mean, it really became a very divisive issue, right? I mean, which is the devil's strategy, right? The devil's strategy is to divide and conquer, and that's kind of what was going on.
Well, and just like we were talking about with the journey and having those great numbers, and then the pandemic happens. I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't long before that we moved to one service.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So it almost does seem like.
I mean, you can, like
it's
I
the
said,
devil. He's trying to get us.
Yeah. Well, on
he's
this
trying to
side
separate
of it,
us.
Yeah. On this side of it, you can definitely look back and make those connections.
Yeah.
But just like anything in life, there's differing opinions about how we should have done this and what we should have done there. But I don't know that I would have done anything different, and I would just throw it out to you two. You guys were here, and you knew what we went through. What would you have done?
It's easy to say when you're not, and don't let this go to your head. The man.
I am the man.
It's easy to say when you're not the one who's having to make the tough decisions to say, well, I would do this or I would do that. But you put yourself in those shoes. It might not be that simple,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, when
you take the information that you have, you make an informed decision, and you do what you try to do right by your people, but you also try to, do right by God. And
a pastor's heart,
your convictions.
I think a pastor's heart is different than a preacher's heart. Preachers can get up and preach, and they do. Honestly, I'm a good storyteller. I don't really know that I'm a good preacher, but I love people. And I think that's the difference, is that you get faced with the pandemic and all the things that were being said about it. Suddenly, your compassion for people really kicks in.
Yeah.
And it's not so much, okay, well, what would I do personally, but what do I do now to protect?
In their best interest.
Yeah, and to protect this flock. And I remember after we were virtual for a couple months or whatever it was, and we came back, and the lady that was in charge of our food pantry, she told me that her grandson had been at Myrtle Beach. He came back like on a Saturday, and she was here on Sunday, the next day. And then Monday, he tested positive and it's just all of these equations now that come in. Well, it's a 3-day incubation period, and you got this, you got that. And I called the local health department. And I said, here's what happened, and here's what's going on. What should I do? Yeah. And they well, we probably recommend that you may not have services for a couple weeks. And again, my pastor's heart kicks in, and I'm like, I want to protect the people. I want to do what's best to protect the people. And I got accused, on a couple of occasions of not having faith and, not trusting the Lord. And
letting the government control us.
Right, the government's telling you what to do, and I get that. I do get that. I wasn't offended by that, but in the end, I think God gave us a brain, and I think some people thought he said rain, and they ran for shelter, and they just don't use it. And I think in that situation, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to try to make the best decisions I can make, and I felt like we did at the time, and I don't know that everybody felt that way. When we came back from the first hiatus, we did the wristband thing, green. If you wore a green wristband,
green, red, and yellow.
Right. You're green. You welcome a hug. You're okay. You don't have. Yellow is I want to say hi to you, but don't touch me. Right.
Yeah.
Red is stay away from me.
Yeah.
And we gave people that.
No touchy.
Right. We gave people that option. Right. Okay. If you're good with it, then just wear the green band and find somebody else with a green band and
hug away.
Hug away.
Yeah.
And so we tried our best to find that balance in the community of faith, but also trying to protect the community of faith and do the things that was going to create this environment that people felt like they could come and participate in service and do what they did. But I don't, in the end, if you put me back in 2020, right, not knowing anything, I would do it all again the same way we did it. I felt like that our people were protected. We had thermometers out there in the foyer, and we had hand sanitizer everywhere. So I felt like we did everything we could do to try to make sure and create that safe environment. And I guess we'll find out one day when the Lord talks to us about it whether we did it right or not.
All right.
All right.
Do we have time for another question, or are we at our...
We got one more question time.
One more question time. Okay. Let's see.
I'm sure you got a bunch of them over there. Wait a minute. Is there feedback in the system?
All right. My last question. We already talked about church attendance. We won't get back onto that.
Oh, boy.
Do you feel like that streaming, which you kind of talked about it already, do you feel like that hurts or benefits the church? So, before, the only people that really quote unquote streamed was televangelists, right? You get on the TV and watch. But now you can get on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can even get like little snippets of sermons on Instagram from different people, things like that. Do you feel like that helps or hinders the church?
Yes.
Okay, well, good talk. Thank you for coming to the Just Saying podcast.
I honestly, that really is my answer. I think
it does both.
I think it has been a good thing, and I think it has been a bad thing.
Well, like we talked about earlier, people have just gotten a little too comfortable going, like you said, going to church in their PJs. And I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you're fine. I think in general...
it's the trend now.
Yeah.
To cut me off?
No, to wear your pajamas everywhere.
Well, Walmart,
especially Walmart.
No, we have... kids wear them to school.
Yeah. That's true, too. I saw some guy cutting his grass today in his PJs.
We have a couple, I won't say who they are, in our youth group that wear matching pajamas.
Yeah, I saw that.
To stuff.
I was going to call them out.
What is wrong with
call them out.
I told Ryan one day we should figure out which pajamas they got, and we should ourselves wear them. Yes.
Maybe I'll wear them, too.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
I think you have to say it has benefited the church in the sense that it has extended the reach, right? We're no longer just whoever shows up here. We can, and we have had, and the reason I said Germany a little while ago, we actually have had someone watching us in Germany. Yeah. We could have never done that. I mean, so yeah, there's a great benefit, but I think also there's a negative effect as well.
Yeah.
Right? The negative effect has been that people just don't seem to think that church attendance...
I don't think it's just church attendance. I think it's a lot of things. I think it's replaced us getting in the Word ourselves, right? We'll go somewhere else to find a nugget or something, and not get in the Word, even prayer, things like that. And I have been guilty of it, replacing those things with podcasts and looking up somebody's sermon.
What's wrong with podcasts?
Seriously though, when did the podcast boom?
You guys started your podcast during this one literally started. I was listening to the first season today in 2020.
And that's, I think people did that. And I this thought hit me when I knew that this was going to be the topic, and I don't really know how I can connect the dots. I'm just going to throw it out there and see. you stop and think about, was working remote a thing before COVID? Of course it was,
but not really.
but not like
Not
it
on
is.
the scale.
Not
that
like it is
now.
today,
Yeah.
right? I have someone in my family, Dane Russell. He works for an organization that he used to have to drive to Taze Valley to the office. And then COVID hit. They said, just work from home. You got your computer, you got the internet, you can work from home. And he's done that ever since. And the truth of the matter is, he doesn't think he'll ever go back to an office. And not his choice, their choice, right? But then you've got other people, they don't have that option, right? A truck driver can't work remotely.
Hard.
Right?
Not yet.
Well, hopefully.
See, now
Tesla's working on it.
now those are called, what did they call them during the pandemic?
Essential
workers. Yeah.
A nurse. Holly's a nurse at the Veterans Administration Hospital here in our area, and you can't do that remotely.
No.
Right? I mean,
although we do have
There's
remote
probably
doctors.
some things that you could do.
Yes,
but,
not what I do. Yeah.
well, here's where my thought is, and again, I'm still not sure how to connect the dots. Is I think even in that it separates people. Right?
Absolutely.
You get to work remotely, but I don't.
Okay. Yeah. So
it's not fair.
it's not, for one. When I was hospitalized during, that period of my life, I went through some mental health issues. I never saw a doctor in person.
Right.
The doctor, the
Telehealth.
psychologist
That's
I talked
crazy.
to was on a little iPad that they rolled into my room.
Yeah.
I was suicidal,
Wow.
and I talked to somebody on an iPad.
Yeah.
crazy.
No, and again, I think that's kind of what has happened. I wear hearing aids.
What?
I do. I wear hearing aids. I know. Stop it.
Ah?
Oh boy. The whole process.
Where's my ear horn?
The whole.
Sorry.
We got to finish up, Holly.
Okay.
The whole process of getting hearing aids. Done
All virtual.
Telehealth. Yeah.
Well, I remember
Wow.
because you had to do like the actual hearing test.
This guy, I did a hearing test with an iPad. The guy had it came in a box, and he goes, "I want you to reach into this and plug this in and put it in your ear." And it was a camera, so he could look in my ear,
Oh,
and he
my
wasn't even
gosh.
here. Right now, would that have happened
No.
before COVID?
No.
How would a chiropractor do his practice remote?
Well, I mean,
All right,
there's
put your
so
hand
Put
behind
your
your
hand right
back.
there. Put
and
your
push
knee
real
over.
hard.
You can do
Did it pop?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Can you
That'll be
find-
$5 million.
Can you find somebody to put their foot right there?
glass. I mean, there's so much like glasses now.
Mm-hmm.
You can do all that online. You can see doctors online. Just literally so much. I mean, you just don't have to be in person to do anything.
Right,
anymore.
and so there you go. You bring
Right.
it full circle. You don't have to be in person to do anything anymore,
Including church.
including church.
yeah.
And I think that's sad because we were created for relationships.
Absolutely.
Right? God said, let there be trees and birds and cows, and the simple fact that they exist blesses God because they don't have a choice. The tree is there, and that blesses God. Then God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And part of that image and part of that likeness is we get a choice to be in a relationship with him. Right? The tree doesn't have a choice. We have a choice. We have a choice to be in relationship with each other. The number one thing that the enemy will do is try to isolate people.
Absolutely.
Try to isolate people.
Somebody said something on a podcast the other day that
It wasn't one of our podcasts?
No.
Well, then I don't know
you
why
know
you're
when
listening to
you
it.
hear something that you're like I've grown up in church and I probably have heard it 100 times, but just the way somebody says it and you're just like, I've never really thought about it like that. But he said you have to understand that the devil convinced a third of the angels who are in heaven around God's throne, seeing his glory in his presence, to fall.
Yeah.
And what do you think he's going to do to you?
Yeah.
And I think that we just think that we're almost untouchable, And I feel like community, I'm learning this myself because I am a hermit,
And conspiracy minded.
Yes. We haven't even got started on what I think about COVID. I text Dad about today. He goes, "Oh,
Don't talk
Lord,
about
please
that on
don't
the
start."
Please don't.
But I've been waiting for us to release the first episode because I know I told Ryan, I was like, oh, people are going to hate me.
Or you're going to have a big following.
Good. Like, Holly, you need to start your own
Finally,
podcast.
somebody who thinks the way I think.
But now I lost my train of thought. What was I
sorry.
saying? That's okay. It's my fault.
You heard somebody say something that you...
Oh, and so, but that's how the enemy will get us, is to isolate us, to remove us from the presence of the Lord. And so, there are scriptures upon scriptures, which I know we haven't read any of them, about, coming together, where 2 or 3 are gathered, do not forsake the gathering of each other. I mean, there's just all of them.
I got a bunch of them.
The great prophet Jack Johnson said in a song, "It's always better when we're together."
Yeah. Well, Jesus went to church.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we go to church. The animal kingdom, that's what they do, is they find the weak and they find the injured and they kind of pull that one away from the tribe or from the pack or from whatever it is. And I think the devil works the same way. He tries to pull us away. Not only that, and this thought hit me today, and we don't have time to get to it now because we got to finish, church discipline.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. See, you can't even do church discipline because people aren't here. But even the Bible says that, if you go to them, they don't receive it, then you take somebody with you. And if they don't receive it, then you take them before the church. Well, it must have been something that was important.
Accountability.
Right.
That's a big thing.
Sorry. That'll be a topic for another
That
podcast.
because that's true. And I think that social media has also been a big thing with accountability.
Yeah.
Because you can present whatever you want to present.
You can be whoever you want to be. Yeah.
And you don't have to be accountable for who you
We
really
look
are.
And you can get drive-by criticisms from social media. People can they think they can just say whatever they want to say and just keep on moving.
Yeah.
Even this week, somebody actually called my wife a fool.
Oh, wow.
On Facebook, on social media.
You didn't tell me this?
Well, because you would have thought it was a conspiracy.
I could have came at him.
I just
Rocka.
responded with, hey, nobody wants a pandemic. Nobody needs to be called a fool. This is just called civil discourse where we can disagree and express ourselves without being disgusting.
Was it where she talked about like house pricing and groceries?
Yeah. And then your Uncle Jerry went on there and he Uncle Jerry.
Where have I been?
Where have you been?
I stay away from
Where you
social
been?
media.
Where you been?
I stay away from it.
You're probably better off.
Poison.
Yeah. It can be good and it can be bad.
Yeah.
Just like anything. Just like the streaming services.
Streaming, yeah.
I mean, it can be good. It can be bad.
And it's initial stages. The idea was to reach more people.
Sure.
It wasn't. So that you can stay home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will end on this if it's okay.
End it, Holly.
I do think that the pandemic did teach us one thing. I'm sure it taught us a lot of things, but one of the main things I think it did teach all of us was the value of life.
Yeah.
And, with that being said, there were, I had the exact numbers earlier, but it was over 1 million, well over 1 million, closer to 2 million people who died during the pandemic. And over 70% of those were, and don't get me started on
older people.
Older people.
And you think it was population control.
I do. 65 and older. Over 70% were 65 and older.
Hey, don't forget my birthday's coming up. I'll be 65 on September the 2nd.
All right, Medicare, here we come.
Oh, I'm there, baby. I'm there.
You better not get COVID.
But we lost we lost people
We did.
in the church.
Yeah.
We lost people in our denomination. We lost our youth and discipleship director, passed away. And so I think that, that we should have came out of that valuing relationships and life more.
And it seems to be the opposite.
Right, yeah.
Now we're celebrating abortions, and I don't get it at all.
weird.
We better stop there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Okay,
We'll
sorry.
make that another topic.
Please.
I don't understand how you can legalize abortion, but you can charge somebody for murder for a pregnant person who gets killed.
Well, and a lady that got killed in Atlanta that was 8 months pregnant, and the guy got charged
double
murder.
homicide.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't. Yeah.
How does that make any sense?
And then they say it's reproductive health, but you're stopping reproduction.
Yeah.
So why are you calling it
And they
reproductive?
say it's Planned Parenthood.
It's not, yeah.
Who are you parenting? A cell? Oh my gosh, we're going to keep going.
Less than one half of 1% of abortions performed are because of rape and incest.
Mm-hmm.
But yet that's the rallying call. Yeah. 97 point something % of all abortions are because someone says, I'm not ready for it, I can't afford it. They're just making a personal decision. They've made it women's health because when it's not legal and you go find unlegal ways to have an abortion, it can be fatal for a person. So now that's considered.
Well, I mean, if you're going to look at, and I know we need to quit,
we're done.
If you're going to look at that, like the double homicide thing,
Yeah.
like what's your justification? Oh, well, she wanted that baby.
Right.
That's the justification?
Yeah.
Because she wanted that baby, it makes it double homicide, but because she didn't, that makes it okay?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, we could, if you want to get your conspiracy theory antennas up,
I'm ready.
Think about if they discover a way to find certain maladies or abnormalities of an infant that culturally people want to celebrate, but a parent finds out that their child might have a predisposition for a particular even lifestyle. And if that parent decides, well, I'm going to have an abortion, watch how they'll fight that then, because that doesn't fit their narrative. That doesn't fit how they want things to go. And man, don't get me started. That is my hot button right now is that issue. So we'll talk about it some other time.
Yeah, maybe next episode.
Hey, okay.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Just Saying. I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and we will get you on the next episode.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.